Hey, what is up, mortals? It is Esbert VA here with a new video for you. Welcome to part 7 of What If Deku Had a Regen Quirk. I just wanted to greet you guys by saying sit back and relax, you're in for a treat. And so, we begin. Midoriya was on the floor of his waiting room and was shaking uncontrollably. He was sweating profusely and his nosebleed wasn't stopping. That's not even getting started with the intense pain in his abdomen that was causing him to curl up into a ball. He couldn't even force himself to get up when he heard the sound of his door being kicked open. What the hell? Izuku! Bakugo knelt beside Midoriya's body, placing his hand on Midoriya's forehead and quickly recoiling when he felt how hot it was. You're burning up. How is this even possible? Midoriya mumbled. No, don't worry about me. You should get ready for the next round. The boy coughed wetly and blood trickled down the side of his mouth. Bakugo replied sharply, Like how I am. I'm not gonna fight you like this. Hearing this, Midoriya's eyes widened and he forced himself to stand up, but he only collapsed back onto the floor. No, we have to fight. This is my chance to show the world who I am. Please, fight me. I sacrificed so much to make it this far. I can't take it back now. Please. Midoriya's voice was shaky and desperate, and only made Bakugo more concerned. What in the absolute hell did you do to get your new power? At first, Bakugo didn't even believe Midoriya when the freckled teen said he got a new one. But now it was the only logical explanation for why the boy with regeneration was uncontrollably bleeding. Midoriya's thoughts were racing. He had tried to avoid thinking about it, but now it was beyond deniable. Something about One For All was causing his body to start deteriorating. After another cough, Midoriya finally told Bakugo a bit more of the truth. I got a quirk from someone. Ever since I've been having these nightmares and my insides feel like they're on fire. Bakugo suddenly yelled out in terror. You got a second quirk? You made a deal with the goddamn devil himself. Are you crazy? The devil? Midoriya questioned. I've always heard rumors about him, Bakugo explained. He's the strongest villain in the world with the ability to steal and redistribute quirks. I never thought you'd go so far as to meet with him. That's not what... What? Midoriya yelled, followed by an immediate coughing fit. I'm sorry I never told you the truth. Should have spoken to you sooner. I never should have accepted this quirk. Midoriya began sobbing as he continued speaking. I just felt so worthless with my quirk. I always felt I wasn't good enough to be a hero. When it was offered to me, I couldn't say no. It's everything I have ever dreamed of, but now I don't even know if I can call myself a hero. What kind of hero sells out for power? I put off confronting them about this because I can't help but feel like I deserve this. Midoriya clenched his clothing into his fists. He remembered when he first accepted One For All from All Might. He remembered how he lied to his idol's face. He accepted the quirk because he was weak and desperate. He didn't care about All Might's legacy, all he wanted was to be strong enough to make a legacy of his own. He wanted to save people, and he couldn't do that with regeneration. Bakugo knew what Midoriya needed. Okay, fine. Bakugo stood up and reached out an arm to help Midoriya up. I'm gonna knock some sense into you during our match. Don't use that shitty second quirk either, just you and me. Like old times. Midoriya took his friend's hand and wobbled as he found his balance again. A wave of relief washed over him when he stood up as the pain started to slowly dissipate. Saying that Bakugo was worried would be an understatement. When he saw how quickly Midoriya recovered when he looked like he was at death's doorstep a second ago, he realized something was deeply wrong. Was Midoriya's imposter syndrome so bad that he was letting himself writhe in pain instead of attempting to use regeneration? Just what the hell did Midoriya do over the summer? He was beyond concerned, and he knew that whatever battle Midoriya was fighting had to be hashed out on his own. All he could do was offer his support. The intercom in the room went off as Aizawa's voice said, Midoriya, be out on the field in 5, don't be late. Before we get back to the video, I'd like to talk about our new channel, Celestia, our channel dedicated to all things Dungeons & Dragons. Currently, we have a series breaking down the different spells in D&D, and soon we'll be starting some new series as well. So if you're a fan of D&D or have an interest in learning about it, check it out. Additionally, if there's something you've always wanted to see get made into a video, head over there and leave a comment mentioning it. The two teens looked at each other with flames in their eyes. They left the room and walked off to the opposite sides of the arena, and soon they were reunited on the rocky platform in the sky. A slight breeze blew over them as Present Mike introduced them to the crowd. Midoriya blocked the voice hero out as he remembered the time when he and Bakugo got into their first fight. It was a couple of months after he had discovered he had a regeneration quirk. Compared to the rest of his class, Midoriya's quirk wasn't flashy or promising, but it made him the perfect punching bag. Whenever he was picked on, Midoriya never fought back, but that soon changed. Bakugo and two of his friends had beaten a random kid to the ground. Midoriya didn't know why, but he was running to his aid.
"Fight me, one-on-one, Kacchan!"
Midoriya challenged. Honestly, he had no idea why he was saying this. He knew that he didn't stand a chance against Bakugo's quirk, but he knew that the blonde would never ignore a direct challenge.
"If I win, you stop hurting people. If you win, I'll do whatever you want for the rest of our lives."
Young Bakugo smiled as he accepted the other's terms. The two walked into a secluded part of the forest and found a small clearing that would work as a good arena. But Midoriya snapped back to the present as Present Mike's voice counted down.
3, 2, 1, fight!
Bakugo rushed towards Midoriya first. The blonde always attacked offensively. Instinctively, Midoriya dodged. He was slipping back into old fighting habits. He was about to counter, but Bakugo's signature right hook had struck him on the side of the head. Midoriya tumbled to the ground and he found himself back in his younger self's body, finishing the role his older self started. Young Bakugo stood over him, laughing. Older Bakugo wouldn't have let his guard down so easily. Midoriya swept his leg and his opponent fell to the ground. Blonde didn't appreciate that, as he charged up sparks in his palm and attacked. An explosion rang in his ears, and ringing transitioned into cheers from the crowd. Midoriya felt his body teeter dangerously close to the edge of the platform. He grabbed a chunk of dirt from the ground and threw it into Bakugo's eyes. Being at a constant quirk disadvantage meant thinking outside of the box. Sometimes it also meant taking low blows. That's what Bakugo had taught him. The teen cried out as he was temporarily blinded by the dirt, and Midoriya took advantage of the moment to land a punch into Bakugo's stomach. Suddenly, he was landing the same attack in the past. He blinked once and he saw older Bakugo on the ground as well. Another blink and he was back in the forest. The young and inexperienced fighter threw himself onto the ground and wrestled with his bully. Yelling, explosions, and thuds added to the ambience of the forest, as birds chirped and leaves rustled. Young Midoriya had his bully pinned underneath him. Older Midoriya was pinned underneath his friend. A hand was placed over his face, sizzling with the threat of instantaneous explosion. He wasn't going to be beaten that easily. The blonde released an explosion against Midoriya's face as he retracted his bleeding hand. Tooth marks were ingrained in his skin. Midoriya sat up as quickly as possible, smashing his forehead into Bakugo's nose. Midoriya felt the weight of Bakugo's body leave, but his senses were completely shot. His vision only saw a blinding white, and his hearing was filled with complete silence. Blood trickled out his ears, nose, and mouth. But injuries didn't last long for Midoriya. He went for another jab at his opponent, but he dodged. Despite the broken nose, he was still quick on his feet. Midoriya was unrelenting, throwing consecutive punch after punch but missing each strike. Bakugo kept using explosions to carefully maneuver around each strike. The blonde's quirk used to be like tiny firecrackers, but now it was like actual grenades. When they were little, the pair was evenly matched in strength. As they grew older, however, things changed. Bakugo's quirk grew with him, but regeneration stayed the same. Midoriya felt left behind and helpless. He felt so helpless that he pushed his body to the point of self-destruction. He lied in the face of his idol. He took on the physical burden of a second quirk, and even after going through all that, he was still being left behind. Midoriya didn't mean to do it. It was like his body reacted on its own accord, in response to his emotions. Green sparks of energy emitted from his veins, and he felt the familiar rush of power fill his being. A punch finally landed on Bakugo's face, and the blonde was thrown off the platform. Bakugo flew back onto the arena, however, while yelling, "What the hell are you doing? Using that quirk isn't going to make things any better." Midoriya saw his veins emanating a pinkish red as the power of One For All grew closer to 100%. With another punch, Bakugo was sent flying into the sky. The blonde looked like he blacked out for a moment, but he remained in the air with the explosions to give himself time to compose himself. The blonde yelled at Midoriya, but he couldn't make out what he was saying. The blood rushing into Midoriya's ears was deafening, and his body was shaking under the power of One For All, becoming too much for his muscles to handle. Bakugo rushed back down to the platform as he used his signature move, Howitzer Impact. Midoriya remembered when they would spend hours perfecting that move together. The blonde was spinning rapidly using explosions, and Midoriya's veins glowed as he pulled back his arm in preparation to counter. He heard the voices of heroes yelling at them to stop, but Midoriya knew they couldn't. This battle meant much more than an internship or a medal. The sleeve on Midoriya's arm broke apart under the pressure emanating from One For All, and the explosions from Bakugo only grew louder. It was time to strike, but several walls emerged from the platform in between them. Midoriya's fist plunged into the stone before he was able to stop himself, and the force sent him flying back. A cloud of dirt and explosive debris filled the air, and Midoriya struggled to see. He was in the forest again, and he made out the image of young Bakugo's silhouette in the dust. As the figure walked forward, it grew until it took the form of an older Bakugo. The forest melted around him as leaves became faces in the crowd, and the soft grass below him became hard dirt. The debris in the air cleared, and he saw Bakugo's outstretched hand offering to help him up from the ground. He took his friend's hand and remembered when the roles used to be reversed. The two kindergarten kids just finished fighting, and young Bakugo reluctantly took young Midoriya's hand. The green-haired boy looked completely unharmed. Bakugo looked like he fell off a cliff. Young Midoriya cut through the awkward silence.
We don't have to keep fighting. We could be friends.
Now, both boys looked like complete wrecks. Midoriya looked down at his arm and saw that it was completely broken. He looked at his friend and saw his fist flying toward his face. The sensation that Midoriya felt wasn't uncommon. It was weird how often he found himself in this position, though. But in a way, it was humorous. He was falling off of the platform, and he laughed. Midoriya's back hit the water with a large splash. The cold shock filled his foggy head with alertness. Just for a moment, he let his back hit the bottom of the body of water. The water was clear, and he could see streaks of the sunlight shining through. It was peaceful. He kind of wished he could stay there a little longer, but he was pushed back up to the surface as a pathway emerged from underneath him. Midoriya saw Bakugo looking down at him from the top of the platform as President Mike announced that he was the winner. Midoriya walked back to his waiting room to change into some dry clothes. After getting cleaned up, Midoriya walked to his class's section of the bleachers, and before he could react, he felt arms around him.
Midoriya, your battle with Bakugo was amazing. I'm sure that you impressed a whole bunch of pros.
Uraraka released the freckled teen from the hug as he saw the rest of his class approach him. The class talked excitedly about their battles, but then it was time for the final one, Bakugo versus Todoroki. The class debated heatedly about who they thought would win. Both teens were undeniably the strongest in the class, but having them try and knock the other off of the platform was another story. When it was Midoriya's turn to say his 2 cents about the battle, he let his hero analysis habit take over.
Well, Bakugo seems to be a lot more worn out from his previous matches than Todoroki. But after Todoroki's battle with Monoma, he seems to be going through some kind of mental block with the fire side of his quirk. If Todoroki used his fire side during the battle, he'd win. If he doesn't, then I think Bakugo can defeat his ice pretty handily.
The class nodded in agreement with Midoriya's assessment. Todoroki's fight with Monoma had had the entire class on the edge of their seats, as they finally saw the stoic teen use his fire side. It was a close match, as Monoma was using Todoroki's quirk against him. Blonde was taunting him the entire match, but something he said seemed to have struck a chord with the dual quirk user because the flames Todoroki used to knock Monoma off the platform were on par with that of Endeavor. The rest of Todoroki's matches were brutal. The teen never wasted a single second, and he took out his opponents with a single blast of ice each time. Midoriya was supposed to have another battle with Setsuna from Class 1B to determine who would receive 3rd place, but apparently her battle with Todoroki left her completely unable to keep fighting. Midoriya knew that Bakugo's explosions were a good counter to Todoroki's ice. He'd seen it for himself during the exercise with All Might a couple of weeks back. It wasn't time to keep theorizing, however, as Todoroki and Bakugo walked onto the field and were now being elevated into the sky. President Mike introduced the 2 teens, and then the battle had commenced. Just like in his other battles, Todoroki sent out a massive blast of ice that completely encapsulated Bakugo. A moment passed, and then another, and there was only silence. But then Midoriya saw a deep orange glow emanating from the ice, and Bakugo blasted his way out of the icy prison. The battle was one-sided, as Todoroki struggled fighting against the close combat nature of Bakugo's fighting style. The small arena wasn't in his favor either, as sliding around on ice wasn't helping him put distance between the two. All Todoroki had to do was activate his fire side to fight back against Bakugo, and for a moment he did. The ice that had accumulated on his skin evaporated, and his left side erupted in massive flames as it did during his fight with Monoma. Bakugo prepared to attack him with another howitzer impact, and Todoroki raised his left arm to attack. But then his arm fell back down to his side as the flames subsided. A large explosion created a cloud of smoke that covered the audience's vision of the battle, and the sight of a falling body landing in the water had everyone staring to see who it was. The clouds faded away, and the winner stood on the platform.
The winner of UA's first year sports festival from Class 1A is Katsuki Bakugo!
Thank you all for indulging yourselves in all this information thus far. I hope you enjoyed it. Now there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, if you're in the mood for some great storytelling, We the Celestials has got you covered. Our We the Celestials My Hero Academia and Naruto What If channels retell the story of their namesake anime with a twist. Check it out if you're interested. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details can be found in the description below. Lastly, if you're interested in what we do here at We the Celestials, then I'd like to extend you an invitation to join the team. The only caveat being that we only accept members from 16 years and up to join our crew. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interest by joining the recruitment Discord using the link in the description below. We're always looking for members to join us. Well, that's it from us for today's video. So thank you all for watching, and have a great day.